For many years, I went about the spiritual life and the Christian life of discipleship as if I had to get rid of something inherently bad that was inside of me and work hard enough and long enough to be good and to do good so that eventually virtue would become just something I would love and a normal part of my life. And I couldn't have been farther from the truth. St. Maximus the Confessor stated that we need to remember that virtue is not something exterior to us or foreign to us. Virtue is actually already inside of us, within us. It's constitutive of our very nature. And virtue was placed in us when we were created by God. And it's true that in the fall, Adam and Eve lost this state. But it is also true that in Christ, we have been restored to this state. And every baptized person regains this state. So that even if a baptized person sins and falls into the passions, the virtues do not cease to define his or her true nature on that account. In our baptism, we know from the Gospel of John, the Trinity has taken up residence within us, within you, within me, in our soul. And in our baptism, at that point, our soul was illumined with divine light. It was cured by Jesus' grace. And God made our soul his bride. So that's why our faculty of memory was given to us to remember God. It's so easy to remember things that bother us, hurt us, but it was given to us to remember God more often than we breathe. And so that's why the fathers of the church urge us to watch at our heart's door, because inside our hearts is where virtue is, where God is, where grace is, where light is, where we live with God. And so we kind of stand like a little soldier at the door of that heart. And as thoughts come to us and we see things and we hear things, we read things, we're in different situations, all kinds of ideas and thoughts, temptations, disruptions, distractions will come to us, but they are outside our heart. And if we stand diligently at our heart's door, we can say, "You do not have any entrance here. There is no landing place for you in my heart." So watch diligently at your heart's door.
Watch at your heart's door. It is a simple, clear, and profound maxim of the Fathers. Watch diligently at your heart's door. But what are they referring to when they say your heart's door? There are three ways we can talk about our heart. The first can be the physical organ, and we attribute feelings to that physical organ. When I say I love ice cream, I almost feel this love for ice cream in my heart, but it's an excitement, happiness, an excitement at being pleased, at having something that tastes good, something that I want. It's a kind of a superficial sense of feeling that's attributed to an organ almost. We also can refer to heart as our psychic life. And a lot of times when people refer to what they love and they hate or their feelings about something, it's kind of being filtered through that psychic life. And this is where the memories of things that have happened in the past, which may be buried so deeply that we don't even recall them, still influence us and our feelings positively or negatively. And they actually still shape the sense of who we feel ourselves to be. So obviously, this definition of heart would be more akin to the subconscious. And Our subconscious and our passions can distort and deform how we see things and how we think about them. And finally, we can talk about our heart as the place where God dwells. This is our true heart, and it's hidden within the depths of our being. It's also where we are hidden with Christ in God, as St. Paul said. And the heart, in this sense, is where Christ came to dwell at baptism. He came there at baptism, and for many years, he remains there very quietly, waiting for us to come to a point where we come and seek him out, where we enter into union and communion with him. And all the spiritual energies and grace and potentials that he brings with him to us can at that point have a possibility of surging up and flowing up into our life and flowing out into the world. But many times we never get to that point. So that heart, Christ is there in that heart. And it's where he came to dwell at our baptism and where he awaits our arrival through repentance and prayer. So from this heart, our mind also receives stimulations that are good and beautiful. They come from Christ, and they nurture within us virtues, the love of virtue, the willingness to sacrifice for others and for virtue. It's a growth of attitudes and actions that are blessed and holy, that are similar to those of Christ. And just as in our subconscious are hidden many things that are still painful or unworked through, unprocessed past events, in this heart are stored the memory of spiritual acts, memories of prayer, of communion, of the presence of God, of the way God came to help us, of things that we've read and experienced. So these memories are stored in this heart, which is the place where God dwells. And here we find the potential of spiritual energies. The measure in which we turn within ourselves, the measure in which we immerse ourselves in the mystery of our own being, is the measure in which that deep heart, that authentic heart where God dwells, will become open to us. So, what is this heart like? First of all, the heart is deep, and it's in the heart that the entire spiritual life develops. As we spoke before about our baptism, it's a place where it's energized by God, it's filled with the Trinity, it's filled with grace and the life of God. Often we don't even know our own hearts in this way. So the battle of the spiritual struggle is fought first and foremost in our own heart. And it's when we enter our heart that we come face to face with the mystery of being. So, what constitutes our heart? The nous is the eye of the heart, the eye that sees, that has vision, an intuitive, immediate understanding of truth, of what is. The nous is made in the image of God, and God is light, and God is love. Therefore, we've been talking in HeartWork about all these seemingly natural things, about getting in touch with all the layers of experience, getting in touch with the present moment, connecting with ourselves. And the importance of that is discovering that when we kind of weed through our thoughts and our feelings and our passions, after we know that we have them and we can identify them and see them and weed through them, we arrive at light and love. And that in our heart is the place of the nous. And in the stillness of very deep prayer, when we leave behind thoughts and concepts, we can see this light. In the eyes of holy people, we also can see this light shining. St. Gregory Palamas wrote that the nous that is freed from passions can see itself as light during prayer and shines with a divine light. So it's not seeing itself, it's not seeing the mind, the light of the mind, but it's seeing that is formed in it by the grace of God. This vision of the light of the nous comes to the work of the Holy Spirit. And here I'd like to share with you a little Desert Father story that has always impressed me. Abba Lot, the story goes, went to see Abba Joseph and said, Abba, Father, as much as I am able, I practice a small rule, a little fasting, some prayer and meditation, and remain quiet. And as much as possible, I keep my thought clean. What else should I do? Then the old man stood up and stretched out his hands toward heaven, and his fingers became like 10 torches of flame. And he said, if you wish, you can become all flame. We must never be short-sighted about the goal of our Christian life with all its efforts. It is nothing less than becoming all flame. It is nothing less than a union with the living God of light. In our heart is also the memory of God. So engrafted even in our cells is this permanent memory of God. We asked ourselves earlier on, why can't we remember God? When it's now we learn it's implanted in our DNA practically. We have memory in order that we may remember God. And we'll see in the future presentations how we can work with that idea, with that reality, that the purpose for which we were given our memory was to remember God. It's very easy for us to remember emotions, or to remember who hurt us, or what we're frustrated with, or someone who made us angry. It's very easy for us to remember those things, but that is not why our memory was given to us. And neither was it given to us to remember our grocery list and our to-do lists and what have to be done today, or 1,000 other things. Our memory was given to us that we may remember God. We ought to think of God even more often than we draw our breath. So going back to the beginning of HeartWork again, to our breath, we said a very simple little phrase, just our name. And then we prayed, I am in you. That or any other short phrase that we can say as we breathe helps us to think of God, to remember Him more often than we draw our breath. So as the Father said, we need to stand diligently at the door of our hearts. And now we see why. Because our nous is so important, to be clean, to be pure, to be open, to be full of light. and the vision of God. So neither is this standing diligently at the door of our heart separated from the whole levels of experience that we learned about earlier on in HeartWork. Because as I stay present to who I am right now, what I'm experiencing right now, how I'm experiencing it, and I stand there in the depths of my heart before God as this moment is being experienced, I will also discover this bubbling over of something beyond me that bubbles over and sanctifies everything. I will discover wonder, and I will know that I have touched God. We will never experience this if we're not in touch with our feelings. We don't know what we're thinking. We don't realize how our passions have captivated us. We're running away from the present moment or ourselves and trying to be someone else. All these tools that HeartWork gives us, practice over and over, are really for the purpose of bringing us home. Bringing us home to that place where God lives and God dwells, and where we live and we dwell with Him. Here we can attentively watch in the stillness the unfolding of the present moment from within our inner core. And there is where we experience the overflowing of the heart.